Since the Raptors were very much involved in Kevin Durant trade talks through much of the summer until the Brooklyn Nets officially shelved the offer, we're going to talk about what it would take for the Raptors to pry Kevin Durant away from the Nets and the 7 players that I would like them to keep out of trade discussions for Kevin Durant. If you're new around here, my name is Robert. This is Pensari Basketball. Grab your coffee, grab your popcorn, and let's get to it. And I'm not surprised that the Toronto Raptors, a team that prioritize playing the right way, would be all over this guy. OG Anunoby sort of let it slip in an interview with Kate Burness that he's not mad at the Toronto Raptors.
And I'm not mad at them or not mad at anyone.
That officially means that he was being shopped. That may not look like the smartest move right now because OG Anunoby looks like he's having a breakout year, both on defense and offense, but it was real. It wasn't just a rumor. No one in the Raptors organization has just come out and just said, nope, we were never involved. No, they were involved. And you can do the math. You can do the math on why that deal didn't happen. They held Scotty Barnes out of that deal. All things considered, I assume nothing has changed on that front. But the situations have changed for both teams. So as for the 7 Raptors that I would keep out of Kevin Durant trade discussions, here I go. It's a surprising list. I don't think that you're necessarily going to be able to project it. And frankly, do me a favor, right before I say this, write in the comments below if you got it right. Okay, just write out your guesstimate. If you've been following me for a while, write out the 7 players you think I'm going to say and tell me if you were right. You're not right, trust me. Okay, here are the 7 players that I would not trade for. Well, let's not say I wouldn't trade. I would trade just about every single one of these players except for 1 or 2. But here are the players that I would like the Raptors to keep out of Kevin Durant trade talks. The first player, Justin Champagnie. Surprisingly, I think that he is so much better than whatever market value he probably has as a throw-in. And obviously, if he becomes a salary dump, I really do think that somewhere down the line, this guy is going to figure it out and have a very long and serviceable career as a role player. I think with the number of ball-dominant players on this team, having a guy who can just grab offensive rebounds, is kind of an okay defender. He's really an evolving shooter. I mean, at some point this year, I'm sure that either due to injury or opportunity, we're going to see a little bit more from Justin Champagnie. I think he's a really good player. I just don't think he's had the best luck this summer with injuries. I really like what I saw from him last year, and I would like to see him stick around. Number 2, Thaddeus Young. Honestly, same reasons further along in his career. I just think that for a guy who just stitches the locker room together, obviously if it's a trade for Kevin Durant, you're going to have multiple players going out, multiple players coming in. There's going to be a bit of a cohesion time. Having a stabilizing force in the locker room like Thaddeus Young is just, it's huge. Third player, Otto Porter Jr. I don't ever want to see Otto Porter Jr. in another jersey other than the Toronto Raptors jersey. I can't tell you how much I love Otto Porter. It is unhealthy how much I have loved this guy as a basketball player for so long. I just think he plays the right way. I think he is just one of those cases of what-ifism that I have in terms of NBA, and I keep holding out hope that he's going to have a late career resurgence given how much of his 20s he's lost to injuries. I just think he's a really good player. I think he's a really good person. And, I think Kevin Durant would really appreciate having a guy like that around. I think he, spaces the floor. He can start in a pinch. He can finish games for you. He's really smart. He plays 2 ways. I would like to keep him. Next up, Christian Koloko. I have been very impressed by what I have seen from Christian Koloko so far. I think that most people would find it very difficult to believe that I'm saying this with a straight face, but I see a lot of Draymond Green in him. And I know that comparison is not very obvious. And it's just, he's got so much left. And I think right now to include him in a trade, not that I don't believe that you can include him in a trade right now, given when he signed his contract, but to even include him in a trade at some point this season would be probably short-sighted, because I think that the potential upside there. Now, I read somebody say on Facebook or Twitter the other day that, oh, well, what's the big difference between Christian Koloko and Evan Mobley? That is insane. I can't believe, sometimes fans say crazy things. Now, I'm not that high on him and I'm not insane, but I will say that I think he could be a serviceable starter for 10 plus years in the NBA. I think he has a lot of offensive upside, and when he puts it together, he's just such an incredibly smart person, and you would want smart players to play with Kevin Durant, who is also a basketball savant himself. So I think just long term, Durant is 34 years old, right? So this isn't going to be a 5-year stretch, right? This is not a 5-year window. And when that window closes, you are going to need young players to carry the torch into the next chapter of the, of whatever the Raptors are going to be at that point. And so provided you're going to be probably including draft picks as capital in this, and you're not going to have many draft picks over the next 4 years, really, you don't want to be giving up really quality young players that have a huge upside down the road. So just in terms of short roll passing, pinch posts, I see so much upside for Christian Koloko. I see him eventually as a shooter, who can space the floor and above the break, sort of trailing the play threes. I just think he has so much potential, not to mention as a shot blocker. He's so much more switchable than people give him credit for or gave him credit for at Arizona. Again, I think the upside is tremendous. I don't think it's Evan Mobley tremendous, but I think it is solid starter for 10 plus years tremendous. So I would like to see him stay out of all talks. This is not a list in order, by the way, so I'm just going to save my most surprising pick for last. Next up, OG Anunoby. I don't have a basketball reason for wanting to keep OG out of this trade. I understand why the Brooklyn Nets would probably absolutely demand that he be included. I would just try to hold on to him because I love OG. I just love OG Anunoby. I think he's such a good dude and really solid, and he's really seems to be coming into his own, not only as a shooter, but also as an all-league defender. I think the last Defensive Player of the Year ladder had him third behind Giannis and Marcus Smart. It's well-deserved, man. He's been incredible. I think Kevin Durant is a very good defender, has lost a bit of a step as a perimeter defender, but still elite at the rim. I think OG fits really well next to him, and I would like to keep OG Anunoby at all costs. I think just a guy who's willing to play team basketball, and, I've known people, who've had conversations with Kevin Durant about basketball, and trust me, this is a guy who studies the game deep, and putting as many smart players and or keeping as many smart players on your team in any transaction for him is going to be much better in the long run in terms of ensuring that he is going to get the success that he wants out of this team. Durant can play 4-5-3, right? OG can play 4-5-3, so you continue that switchable, switch everything type lineup. Next up, of course, Scottie Barnes. I wouldn't trade Scottie Barnes straight up for Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant was my favorite player growing up. I just think the upside is so huge for Scottie, and getting a little bit exhausted seeing all of these comments that, oh, he's having the sophomore slump and he's playing so poorly. The guy is Mamba mentalitying through an ankle injury that is basically resulting in blow-bys. I mean, Scottie cares about defense. He would never give up a blow-by unless he could literally not move his foot. Dude is hurt, right? And you're going to need a second option next to Kevin Durant. You're going to need one that he can really play off of, and someone who can work with him and find him open looks when he's not initiating, and I think Scottie Barnes is incredible for that. Also, at some point, you will need to bridge after Durant retires and or demands a trade in a year. I don't know, probably not. But when Durant leaves at some point, because he is at a latter age in his career, I think you will need to hand the reins off to somebody. And I think Scottie at that point would be 24, 25 years old and perfectly capable of being a franchise player. I have no doubt at all. Nothing I have seen this year will lead me to believe that Scottie Barnes will be anything other than a top 7, top 6, top 5, top 4 player in the NBA. I really do see that level of upside for him, and I continue to see that. The final player that I would try to keep in any trade talks with Brooklyn is Fred VanVleet. Now, this is probably going to shock some people who watched my last few videos, but I really just like the basketball fit from the perspective of just understanding basketball and how it moves. Having a shooter and a defender like Fred VanVleet next to a guy like Kevin Durant, it's just ideal. I've always wanted Kevin Durant to have a player like Fred VanVleet. Playing with a guy like Durant probably, I'm assuming, would completely take out all of the heroism from Fred VanVleet. He would clearly be not the best player on the team anymore. There would be no debate about it. It completely restructures the team dynamic around how he feels about his role on the team and pecking order. And I think if that ego were to be, cut a little bit, I'm assuming that Fred VanVleet is smart enough to let the offense run through Scottie Barnes and Kevin Durant. And I just think that it would be good to have a shooter like VanVleet with Kevin Durant. And Kevin Durant actually happens to be a really big fan of Fred VanVleet. So, give him someone else that he really likes to play with would be kind of nice. So anyways, those are 7 players that I would like to keep out of Durant trade talks. Obviously, you can deduce from the names that I left off the list which players I really don't care if they go out in a trade. That includes Siakam, that includes Gary Trent Jr. Obviously, Durant is still a hell of a player, right? So to anyone out there thinking that you're going to get him from Malachi Flynn, Kem Birch, Gary Trent Jr., like, I've seen those trades proposed by some fans, and I'm just like, wow, like, you do understand the Nets have to sell this to their franchise, right? So look, all of this top 5 Siakam stuff, right? I've obviously had I've clarified my point on it 1,000 times. I'm not going to beat a dead horse by telling you again what I feel about it. But it would be some 4D chess move by Tsai and Bobby to sort of feature a guy like Siakam, let him put up these godly numbers. It would be interesting, of course, if Siakam comes back and continues to play the way he is, if that boosts his trade value just enough that the Nets finally say, okay, well, if this guy really is a top 10 player, and he's 6 years younger, 6 years younger than Kevin Durant, well, now this is a guy we can actually sell to our fan base as hope as a franchise player. If the Raptors gave Siakam that, or emboldened him to take on that role in order to raise his value, which is something that a lot of you have suggested in the comments, and I've sort of just stayed away from that because I don't think that that's what happened. But if that's what happened, well, then that's a genius move. Look, the Raptors had plans, right? They had made plans to pursue Giannis in free agency. And Giannis is as superstar comes. They were very actively involved in trade talks for Kevin Durant. Now, there's no way in hell that Kevin Durant comes to a team and plays second option to Pascal Siakam, and then there's no way in hell that Giannis Antetokounmpo is coming here to play second option to Pascal Siakam. I think there is a possibly writing on the wall, clear directive here that they understand that this is not a championship number 1 like Kawhi was. And is Siakam sort of this generation's DeRozan? Like, this iteration of the Raptors, is this it? Like, there's all these reports that the Raptors are kind of looking at, okay, well, if they can't get out of the first round this year, why is the bar so low? Like, I thought this organization cared about championships. And this Kevin Durant thing, it may not be around forever. And of course, if you try to make this trade next offseason, well, now you've lost another year of his prime, and he's balling out of his mind right now. So I know the numbers probably tell you that Kevin Durant and Pascal Siakam are relatively similar players right now. And you would think, well, why the hell would I trade? Why would I trade the younger, homegrown version of a similar player for a similar player? And look, if you think that Kevin Durant and Pascal Siakam are similar players or similar caliber players, then I really don't know what to say to you. But they're not. And when you get into the playoffs, if you've watched Kevin Durant in the playoffs, you understand that he is a different caliber of dude. Last year notwithstanding, the Nets get a lot of slack for getting swept by the Celtics. Did you watch the games? Did you actually see how close every one of those games was? And win, loss, or draw, I don't think Kevin Durant was the reason that they lost that series. So I don't know if the Raptors will eventually swing for Kevin Durant. I don't know. I think one of the things probably holding it up is that the Raptors, you notice that the Raptors have had quite a few trades with the Spurs already, right? They prefer to deal with not leaky organizations. The Spurs are not a leaky organization. I have issues with how they run things, but they're not a leaky organization. But one of the things I will tell you is that because the Nets are such a leaky organization, that pursuing a trade with this team mid-season has such potentially disastrous consequences that if a deal is made like the one with Lowry and the Knicks with Dolan, and everyone's on board, and then last minute Joe Tsai just gets cold feet because, again, when rumors come out and general managers hear about what the perception is among their fan base, and Joe Tsai strikes me as that guy, that guy who would pull out like last second, A, because he doesn't know better, and B, because of that little ego. It is ego, right? It's not do-goodedness. Now, you can say what you want about Kyrie Irving and there's the mess of, the mess he's created everywhere he's gone, from Boston to Cleveland to now the Nets, right? Like it hasn't been great. But if you think that Joe Tsai's list of demands for Kyrie have anything to do with do-goodedness or promotion of, anti-hate towards Jewish people, you're crazy. There's nothing to do with any of that. It has everything to do with ego. Publishing that list, making it public, leaking it to the public, somehow allowing that to get out, that this is what this superstar basketball player has to do in order to get back in my good graces. Bro, if you've dealt with toxic people, you understand that Joe Tsai is not someone that you want to be involved with right now. The way that organization has been run, I don't know if the Raptors deal with this team. But if they do deal with that team, those are the 7 players that I would like to keep. Anyway, this has been a little rant on Kevin Durant, who he is, what he's meant to me as a basketball fan, and my hopes on what would happen if the Raptors were able to pull it off. I hope this has been interesting and insightful. This isn't what this channel is usually like. This is just me talking into a mic. Usually this channel features a lot of graphics and a lot of videos and video breakdowns. So if you're interested in content like that, be sure to check that out. And hopefully some of it is insightful and interesting and it can teach you something about breaking down game film and looking at analytics and stuff. And every day we're growing and that's really cool, given that, for 8 months of the year, I really didn't do anything with this channel, but we're growing fast now and we're going to keep this thing going. So if this was interesting to you, if you want more of this, if you like post-game analysis, if you like the Raptors, then hit subscribe. Talk to you later. Peace.
What more could you have done to slow Kevin down?
I promise we tried.
The toughest matchup that I've had to deal with.
The most unguardable human that's ever been created.
KD is a certified killer.
He is probably the most elite scorer in NBA history.
The best offensive player in the game.
The narrative is going to be, well, he has to go prove it by himself.